your body if you rub it.
So your skin has pores. You rub the lotion on your skin and it gets absorbed through those pores into your. So the other day when I was reading my headlines, and by headlines I mean not on my timeline, of my favorite quasi search engine, I saw a headline about my favorite topics, erectile dysfunction. But before I got excited about erectile dysfunction, I remember that the first thing they taught me in grade school, don't believe everything you see on the internet, especially if it's clickbait. Definitely avoid clickbait. Anyway, to prove a point, maybe we should talk about RCTs, randomized controlled trials and their biases, which depend on the randomization of their sample and several important controls of which, when foiled, create biases. So what is bias? It's the devil. It's basically the worst thing since the Trump candidacy, which was also chock full of bias. So imagine a dark side of you built up with all preconceived notions that make you less of a Jedi, more of a Padawan. Yeah, that's bias. But seriously, here are some biases to consider. Selection bias. Imagine a study investigating diarrhea medication where all participants met exclusion criteria. Now imagine that if everyone who just ate Chipotle an hour ago ended up in the experimental group. Yeah, that's good results, wouldn't it? You could say it'd be a very crappy situation. Yeah, the jokes don't get much better than this. So that's why we use a random sequence generation, usually a computer, an algorithm, and perhaps a bit of magic to ensure that this never happens. Or, somebody who's just really good at math. Next, imagine a study where participants were able to break the code of who was in what allocation and then skew results that way. This may seem really far-fetched in nature, but this is actually what happened during the HIV pandemics in the mid-80s, where being an experimental group literally meant the difference between life and death. For more about this, please consult the Oscar-winning performances by Matthew McConaughey and Jared Leto in Dallas Buyers Club. Moving on is performance bias, which bases itself on how the study is actually conducted. Blinding may be the most important aspect of this to account for the placebo effect. When reading a study, don't just look for the double blind, but ask yourself who was actually blinded. Was it the participants and the surveyors, just the participants, or just the idiot who planned the RCT about erectile dysfunction medication without actually blinding anyone involved? Detection bias also has something similar. It's where a flaw in your study caused your sample to find out what treatment they were in, and perhaps they talked to each other, and perhaps it was just avoidable altogether. Ooh, I didn't know this hair loss medication was working. Measurements of outcomes should also be blinded so a-holes like me don't try to skew your results to get published in JMAD and have a picture with Michelle Obama. Of course, I'm just kidding, that's what reviewers and retractors are for. Lastly is attrition bias, also known as what if everybody in the group leaves while the other group is fine. Of course, an intention to treat analysis can be used, which accounts for dropouts, and may be useful in studies where many may be present, like baldness or erectile dysfunction studies. And yeah, maybe watch somebody else's video for this. Last but not least, and probably my favorite bias because I can make the most jokes about this, is reporting bias. So I'll use an example. Imagine going on your favorite social media website, dating website, or dating app. Like recently I swiped right to somebody on let's say it's a business-oriented app. You swipe left and right to possible business associates and friends and people in your social network. And not people you might be dating. So I open up the conversation on this application, we'll say, and I start my opening line with, hey, yeah, I'm at least 5'10". I'm actually 5'8", and that wasn't the only thing I lied about in this conversation. But needless to say, this is an example of a reporting bias. The moral of the story here is whether you're lying to somebody over a dating app or on a survey, you're just lying to yourself. So don't lie, because you're ruining research and humanity and your chances of dating that person. Lastly, other biases, and this includes such things as a conflict of interest, and I'll use another example here. Like, for example, imagine if Rogaine sponsored a study on male pattern baldness. Yeah, I'm not going to be publishing any of the findings saying that their drug stops working after 2 years. They're paying me too much money, sending me on too many golf trips, and plus I have a full head of hair again. For like 2 years. Hey, are you sick of I effing love science and Yahoo headlines on your timeline? Are you a master's student and just really fed up with clickbait on the internet? I am too. Brothers Against Clickbait. Like us on Facebook and maybe e-transfer me $5 so I can feed myself tomorrow. Brothers Against Clickbait. Just e-transfer me $5. Don't even like our page.